After I left University of South Dakota at Springfield in 1975 by mutual agreement, I was doing poorly. I didn't make it to most of my classes, or a lot of my classes, and I did go to most of my electronics classes, and honestly, I was okay. I was competent in electronics. I was pretty much as good as the next person. Not outstanding in any way, just I did okay. And I thought I knew everything that I needed to know, and so I tried my hand at different things. I applied for a number of jobs in the electronics area around Scotland and stuff, and uh, never was even really gotten towards an interview, except for maybe a couple times where I had sent in a resume or an application, and then when I actually went there, um, the interviews, uh, they would keep me on file type of things. And I tried doing my own radio repair and et cetera, out of my home in Scotland. That didn't go very well. There was already Ted Grace TV in Scotland, and and I applied to work there, even basically for nothing or next to nothing, but he wasn't interested. And so I worked a little for my mother in the cleaners, and I clerked and things like that. And at the time, my dad had gotten a job at an apartment complex as a superintendent in Sioux Falls, and my mom didn't drive, so we did a lot during we would go up there on weekends because his days off were during the week, usually Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And so he would come home during those times, and we often would go up there on the weekends, and which was interesting, I guess. And we got to do a few things that we got to see the Freedom Train, and the apartments had a swimming pool, and so I was able to go swimming once in a while. And my sister Beth, we would go up there on weekends and stuff, and there were some, and so I did some things, and we had a dog, Prince, that I trained, helped, and then helped with training and stuff. And Beth was using in 4-H, and uh, she did later get another dog, a German Shepherd, Penny, who I did help her train with that and stuff too. And so I did some things, and a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but really kind of floundered around, and I ended up spent a lot of time up at my Uncle Tom's, who had taken over the family farm up in what I call Bickettsville, up by Winfred. And he had truck. He was running a truck driver, and my brother Mike worked for him, and my brother Jim was up there too, and so I did spend some time there, and then eventually I moved up there for a while. Lived in part of the trailer house where my brother Mike and Tammy lived with their children and stuff, and I helped with the kids, and I tried to open a computer store in Howard, or not a computer store, I'm sorry, an electronics store. That didn't go very well either. I didn't really have any proper backing or funding, uh, and so it really didn't go very well. And a couple things happened along the way. I was starting to get fairly decent at it and fixing televisions and things like that. Um, and but I had a couple times when somebody would call me to work on their TV, go to their home and work on their TV, and then would call back later and say, "Oh, we got it figured out" or something. I found out along the way that uh, this had happened a couple times, and it was because of the fact that people were concerned that if I got in their house that I might fall on my crutches and braces and stuff, and be able to sue them or something, which of course I wouldn't do, but I would. I mean, of course I could be able to, but I wouldn't. Um, and some things like that were getting in the way. I applied for any jobs that showed up in electronics around there, and again, nobody was interested. I finally ended up Mtron out of Yankton was opening a plant down in Scotland. And so I ended up moving back to Scotland and applied at the Mtron plant, and they seemed really interested. They were the fact that I had some electronic background put me ahead of most of the people that were there, and they were talking about having me work in the testing area. Well, this was all related to the CB radio boom and the need for crystals. Well, that changed. The boom was still kind of going on, but the need for crystals went down because some things had been developed in the industry that took it from needing some, 15 crystals or more for every radio down to only needing 2. And so Mtron never did open up the plant in Scotland. And I again started working for my mother and helped her with some things in the cleaners, actually organized some things, managed to open her safe that had been locked for years, and sent out letters to the schools around, and she did the band uniforms during the summer for a number of schools and some things like that. And eventually I started thinking maybe I needed to go back to school, because I realized something, that if I was just as good, in all the electronics jobs that I applied for, if I was just as good as the next person, guess what? They're probably going to hire the next person. You can have all the laws you want, you can make all the rules you want, but that's how it is. That's the real world. And I realized that I couldn't be just as good as the next person, and I needed to find a way to get better, to be better.